Hello, I'm Andrew Wright, a partner in Deloitte's supply chain practice. And we're here to talk about how you can realize the full potential of your production capabilities by using some very advanced data analytics and simulation techniques. And joining me is my colleague, Duncan Boyd.
Hi there, Duncan Boyd, and I work with Andrew in our UK supply chain practice. Glad to be here.
So Duncan, you spend a lot of time with our clients looking at their supply chains. But as we look out from production and we look up towards the customer end of the business, what sort of pressures and changes are you seeing?
So I'm seeing across the board in CPG, pharma, life sciences and healthcare and chemical industry, I think it's consistently they're seeing a SKU proliferation, more and more SKUs in their portfolio. They're trying to do more to meet changing customer demands. They're also dealing with an increasing amount of pressure and competition. So whether it's from large incumbents in their industry or the small disruptors that are coming through, there's more and more competition in the marketplace. And I think what we're also seeing on that side of the equation is changing demand patterns. You only need to look to the last few months to see how certain of our CPG companies, for example, have seen changes from small bespoke products to big bulky products to meet changing demand. So those three things and how they play out are creating quite a lot of noise on the demand side. Mm-hmm. Andrew, on the supply side, I mean, how's that play out?
Well, I would call it not so much noise as havoc, actually, because the SKU proliferation means there needs to be a changeover to support each SKU. So I'm running the same fixed assets as before, which were already tight on utilization pressure. And now I need to cycle through more SKUs, which is really difficult. And the volatility that you talk about means there's pressure to chop and change at relatively short notice. What this causes is a much more reactive way to planning and running the factory than is ideal. Always with the background pressure coming from the CFO that says, can they have more volume, more margin, more SKUs, but lower cost, and can we do something about that inventory? So in fact, it's a really tough time to be an operations director or a production manager. The way in which we go about these things, I think, makes a big difference to the overall outcome. And what are the target outcomes that the demand end of the supply chain is trying to achieve?
That's a good question. So I think service first and foremost is always the case. But you'd mentioned the CFO, the financial pressures. Trying to do that with as little inventory invested in working capital investment as possible is always going to be a priority. But then at the same time, trying to be flexible and agile, trying to respond to changing customer demand that I spoke about, being very responsive to that with a little bit of inventory. Mm-hmm. As well as super short lead times. So we're seeing, demand going from you could have it next week to day one for day two to within the same day, and that's the responsiveness that's coming through. So really trying to be focused on those things: minimal inventory, flexibility and agility, and super short lead times is the challenge. How's that going to play out on the supply side?
That makes things even worse. Super short lead times is exactly the opposite of what we're really looking for, because we want nice long runs. We're under utilization pressure. Long runs, minimal stoppages. We want to sweat the asset, good overhead recovery, nice large batch sizes. That's going to get every factory manager excited. So the pressure that's coming from your end is exactly the opposite. We are going to have to try to knock off some edges here and find a way of making this work for all. And there is a new approach that we've been thinking through and that we've been using with some clients. If I start at the production end, you start with the simple premise that actually sequence matters. Product B following A is not the same as A following B. So if we can sequence our product in the ideal way, then we minimize the cumulative change over time. And that gives us a bit of that free capacity that we so desperately need. Now, whilst we might want long runs, we recognize there's an economic argument here. Long runs, high levels of inventory, potential for obsolescence. So why don't we do some form of cycle length optimization across those three cost drivers, and then combine with sequence and cycle length to create a rhythm wheel. So this is the economic, perfect way to run the factory. Now, if we could do that, okay, then that would give us the stability that we need if we can stick to that, and we know that we're working in the most cost-effective way. Could that work for the demand end of the supply chain?
It could. You would need to address the variability on the demand end, and a way to do that is to segment that. So you say, what is my SKU portfolio? What is the variability that we're facing? What is the uncertainty and the frequency of demand? That will give you a segmentation. These are my A-class items, and going deeper into variability, volume, and intermittency. So you segment. That'll give you the strategy you need, your service strategy. And then that'll also help you set up the safety stock. So he's talked about cycle stock, safety stock there as well to buffer. So if you can set up the buffer and the guardrails, then I think that the production sequence and cycle stock you talked about is achievable.
So it sounds as if we can bring a number of things together all at the same time, sequence, cycle length, production wheel, inventory optimized by SKU location combination, and service level optimized by SKU location combination. If we can do all of that all at the same time, we're in with a fighting chance. That sounds like a lot of maths. Have we actually tried this?
Well, we have. So let me tell you about a global drinks business that we've done this with recently. So, I mean, all of the challenges that we've just spoke about earlier, they were facing. So on the customer side, the classic of they were not meeting service requirements on their most important products. So the A-class items. If you think about it in the warehouses, what they had to deal with, they're trying to stock and hold over 230 SKUs. And they were having high inventory in all the wrong kinds of products. So missing on service on their most important ones and having too much of the stock that they don't need. And then if you took that down to the factory side, 5 production lines, but the amount of change that they were dealing with because of all of the service misses and the responsiveness that we spoke about, something like a 52% planned production adherence. So week on week, what I planned to make and what I actually made, 52%. And that resulted in a lower than average OEE of about 60%. So all the challenges we just spoke about, they were facing.
So 52% plan adherence shows the level of disruption that's finding its way back up into the plant. So the approach that we've talked about creating this optimized, cost-optimized rhythm wheel, presumably would go a long way towards fixing that and driving that number up. We'd be nice and stable because we're keeping our cycle lengths and our sequence and operating to our rhythm wheel. That's attractive. I mean, essentially what we're talking about here, Duncan, is fixed cycle scheduling.
Yeah, we are. So it's the move from traditional reorder point planning to fixed cycle scheduling, as you say. So I plan to make it once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. That's the philosophical shift that we're talking about here.
And I mentioned earlier, it's a lot of maths. It sounds like a lot of maths. Is it? And how do you go about fixing? How do you go about addressing that?
It is, and it's again, traditionally people would have tried this challenge with Excel spreadsheets and run up the limit again of that. You need to chunk this problem up into both linear and non-linear optimizations. The math is there, the data science is there. We're taking advantage of it.
And then what to give the answer 42, and we're all comfortable with that. How do we get faith? How do we build belief that this is the right way to work?
So that optimization, we're running the linear and the non-linear, and we're able to achieve, galactic scale optimization, 10 to the power of 52, which our data scientists love to say is more stars than the galaxy. You take that optimization, you've got the answer. Now we test it. We have to run over 8 million simulations. These are the parameters we're working towards. Let's test their validity. Let's test how reliable they are. So we get confidence in the answer we get. Because we've said it demands this, supplies that, throw it at it, does it work? We get the answer.
So we've got our answers, optimized sets of parameters. What do we do with them, Duncan? How do we make it become part of real life?
So 2 things. We can embed it, just integrate into the tool sets that they have. Quite a lot of our clients have SAP APO, and we work with that. as well as integrating with some of the next-gen tools like SAP IBP or Kinaxis or O9. So it just works in with the existing tool set. And then we also addressed, we talked about the philosophical change. So it is a change in way of working, and we work with our clients to help them move towards that change.
So imagine I'm the CFO.
Yeah.
What's the idea? What does this mean in money terms for us?
So on average, we're finding across a factory, we're able to realize €1 million in P&L benefits through smarter working and changeovers, less storage costs, and all those good things, as well as releasing additional capacity that could be used to sell more product. In addition, we're getting in the region of €1.6 million working capital reduction. So reducing inventories by about 12%, to put it in context for everyone, reducing changeover times by about 21%, all while working to higher levels of service.
So as a CFO, I've just heard the words €1 million per factory, typically. If I've got 30 factories in my network, then am I right to think that I should be looking for a bigger bonus next year?
Yeah, I mean the power of this, and it's the thing is, we're looking beyond the four walls of the factory. We're looking at the whole supply chain and optimizing in the factory. I think, yeah, get your bonus checks ready.
That's great stuff. Thank you. So we've heard a little bit about how we can use very large scale analytics to look at customer demand, inventory, and production, and get all of those things working in harmony to drive efficient supply chain operations. And that's the power of Supply Cycle. If you'd like to know more, feel free to contact Duncan or to contact myself, or come and visit us on our virtual stand. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.